If you're in your 30s and you have less than $100,000 saved across your bank accounts and investments, society is quietly whispering that you are falling behind. You see 22-year-olds on TikTok claiming they just bought their third rental property, while you are staring at a $12,000 savings balance and a mountain of student loans, wondering if you will literally have to work until you die. But here's the controversial truth the financial industry doesn't want to admit. The modern economy is literally designed to extract every dollar from you in your 20s, so you spend your entire 30s playing catch-up. You aren't stupid, you were just perfectly marketed to. You were sold the pavement princess truck you didn't need, the ego-driven wedding that put you in debt, and the lie that a 5% high-yield savings account is enough to build wealth. Charlie Munger famously said, "The first $100,000 is a bitch, but you gotta do it." Getting $200K is 90% psychology and brutal sacrifice. But once you cross that line, the math flips. The money starts making its own money. In this video, you will learn exactly how to hit that $100,000 milestone, even if you are starting from absolute zero today. By the end, you'll have a step-by-step, mathematically proven plan to accelerate your wealth, hack your income, and completely change your financial trajectory before you hit 40. I know what it feels like to wake up in a cold sweat about money. 5 years ago, at age 31, I was staring at $47,000 in consumer debt and a net worth of negative $30,000. I felt like a complete failure. I remember lying awake at night doing the math over and over again, trying to figure out how I was going to climb out of that hole. It felt impossible. It felt like everyone else had figured something out that I just couldn't understand. But by reverse engineering the math I'm about to show you, I didn't just get out of debt, I crossed the $100K in less than 36 months. And today, my portfolio works for me while I sleep. I'm not a Wall Street insider. I don't have a finance degree from some Ivy League school. I'm just a regular person who got tired of feeling broke and finally figured out the math that wealthy people have been using for generations. And I am going to give it to you for free right now. Let's start with the end result. What does success actually look like? Success is not a Lamborghini. It's not a designer watch or a house you can't really afford. Success is reaching what the FIRE community calls coast FIRE, the point where your investments are large enough that they will compound to a multi-million-dollar retirement even if you never invest another penny. Imagine that for a second. Reaching a point where your money is working so hard for you that you could stop investing entirely and still retire wealthy. That's the goal. But to get there, we have to perform what I call financial triage. You cannot fill a bucket that has massive holes in it. It doesn't matter how much water you pour in if the bottom is missing. And for most people in their 30s, the bucket is full of holes. The biggest mistake people in their 30s make is trying to look like they are in their 40s. I call this the fake rich epidemic. You get a slight bump in salary, maybe you finally break $80,000 or $90,000 a year, and immediately you upgrade the apartment. You finance a $45,000 car, and you start taking aesthetic vacations for Instagram. You convince yourself you deserve it because you worked hard, and maybe you do deserve a treat. But here's the problem. You're robbing your future self to pay for present-day ego. This is lifestyle creep, and it is a financial virus. It spreads silently, and before you know it, you're making more money than ever before, but somehow have less saved than when you were broke. If you are behind on your retirement goals, you do not have the luxury of financing your ego. I need you to really hear that. You cannot afford to care what your coworkers think about the car you drive or the neighborhood you live in. They aren't going to pay your bills when you're 70 and still working because you have nothing saved. Let's look at the math, because the math doesn't lie. The average new car payment in America is now over $700 a month. $700. That's not even counting insurance, which is higher on new cars, or maintenance, which is expensive at the dealership. If you take that $700 and instead of giving it to Ford or Toyota for a piece of metal that loses value every time you drive it off the lot, You invest it in an S&P 500 index fund returning an average of 10%. Do you know what happens? In 10 years, that's $143,000. In 20 years, it's $532,000. In 30 years, we're talking over $1.3 million. You are literally trading $500,000 for leather seats and a dashboard screen. You're swapping your retirement for a monthly payment and a shiny hood ornament. That is the common mistake you must avoid. You have to sell the financed car. You have to downgrade your lifestyle. You must create a massive gap between what you earn and what you spend. That gap is where wealth is built. Without that gap, you will never get ahead. But here's what your bank doesn't tell you about your savings. You cannot save your way to $100,000. Let me say that again because it's important. You cannot save your way to wealth. Inflation is the silent thief in the night. If you leave your money in a traditional bank account earning 0.01%, your purchasing power is melting like an ice cube on a hot sidewalk. Every year, that money buys you less and less, while the bank uses it to make loans and earn 10 times what they're paying you. Now, don't mishear me. You need an emergency fund of 3 to 6 months of basic living expenses in a high-yield savings account. That is your fortress. That money is not for investing. It's for protecting you from life's curveballs, job loss, medical emergencies, unexpected repairs. But beyond that, every extra dollar sitting in cash is a soldier sleeping in the barracks when it should be out on the battlefield capturing more territory. Cash is comfortable, but cash doesn't grow. You need your money to work. Once we've stopped the bleeding, we move to step 2, the shovel strategy. Personal finance experts love to tell you to cut out your $5 morning coffee. It's easy advice. It's safe advice. It makes them sound smart without asking anything hard of you. But here's the truth. That advice is lazy. Yes, skipping the latte saves you $150 a month, and $150 a month is real money. But if you are 33 years old with $5,000 to your name, $150 a month is not going to save you. It's a drop in the bucket. You don't have an expense problem, you have an income problem. Your shovel is too small. You need to aggressively increase your earning power over the next 24 months. This is non-negotiable. If you want to catch up, you have to earn more. Period. There are 2 types of income: linear income and scalable income. Linear income is your 9 to 5. You trade 1 hour of your life for a set amount of dollars. Work 40 hours, get paid for 40 hours. It's predictable, but it's capped. There are only so many hours in a day. Scalable income is disconnected from your time. It's a side business, freelance consulting, digital products, or equity. You build something once and it pays you repeatedly. Or you trade your expertise for high hourly rates that multiply your time's value. If you are behind, you need to attack both. First, your 9 to 5. The common mistake here is waiting for your annual review to get a pathetic 3% cost of living raise. You sit in that meeting, you get told you're doing great, and they hand you a 3% bump that doesn't even keep up with inflation. A 3% raise on a $60,000 salary is an extra $1,800 a year before taxes. After taxes, you're looking at maybe $1,200. That's insulting. That's not a raise. That's a participation trophy. You need a 20% jump. How? By job hopping. I know that term sounds scary. We're conditioned to believe loyalty is a virtue. But let's look at the data. Data from the last 3 years shows that employees who stay at their companies long-term are hit with what economists call a loyalty tax. People who switch companies every 2 to 3 years see income bumps of 10 to 20% each time. Over a decade, that difference compounds into hundreds of thousands of dollars. You need to update your resume tonight, not next week, tonight. Get on LinkedIn, start looking at what's out there, and start interviewing. Even if you aren't sure you want to leave, interview anyway. It keeps your skills sharp and shows you what you're actually worth in the current market. Do not be loyal to a corporation that would replace you in a week if you dropped dead. They don't love you back. But wait, what if you can't leave your job? Maybe you have golden handcuffs. Maybe you're in a niche field. Maybe the market in your area is tough. Here's the counterintuitive insight most people miss. You build a bridge. You keep the 9 to 5 to pay the rent and cover your basics, and you use your hours from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. to build a scalable skill. Those 4 hours a day, while everyone else is watching Netflix or scrolling TikTok, become your wealth-building factory. What kind of skill? Copywriting, video editing, data analysis, bookkeeping, AI implementation for small businesses. You do not need to invent the next Uber. You don't need venture capital or a fancy app. You just need to solve a $1,000 problem for 3 clients a month. That is an extra $3,000 a month. $3,000? If you take that entire $3,000 side hustle income and invest it, do the math. That's $36,000 a year. Add that to your 9 to 5 savings, and you will hit $100,000 in less than 3 years. It requires sacrifice. It means saying no to happy hours. It means boring weekends while your friends are out having fun. But you are trading 2 years of grinding for decades of financial freedom. That's a deal worth making. Most people have no idea. They think they know, but when they actually track every dollar, they're shocked. Now we reach the most critical step, step 3. You've cut the ego purchases, you've increased your income. Now we have to build the machine. If you're in your 30s, you still have time, but you do not have time to make stupid mistakes. This is not the decade for gambling. You cannot afford to gamble on speculative crypto coins or day trade penny stocks hoping for a lottery ticket. That's not investing. That's gambling. And the house always wins. You need guaranteed mathematical wealth creation. You need the engine that has built more millionaires than anything else in history. Compound interest. You need to understand the 8-4-3 rule of compounding. Let's say you invest enough to reach your first $100,000. Historically, in the stock market, it might take you about 8 years of consistent investing to hit that first 100K milestone. It's the hardest money you'll ever save. It requires discipline and patience. But because of the magic of compound interest, where your money makes money, and then that money makes money on top of the money it already made, the next $100,000 doesn't take 8 years. It takes about 4 years. Your money's working alongside you now. The third $100,000, it only takes 3 years. By then, your money is working as hard as you are, maybe harder. And by the time you're closing in on your first million, your money is making more in a year than you do at your job. That's the goal. That's financial freedom. Look, you don't need to be a math genius or understand complex equations to make this work. You don't need to calculate the formula. You just need to buy the entire haystack. The biggest mistake beginners make is trying to pick individual winning stocks. They read a Reddit thread or see a TikTok and think they've found the next Apple. Stop it. You are not Warren Buffett. Even Warren Buffett says most people should just buy index funds. Instead of trying to find the needle in the haystack, buy the whole haystack. You are going to open a brokerage account, Fidelity, Vanguard, or Charles Schwab, and you're going to buy a broad market index fund or ETF. An ETF like VOO, which tracks the S&P 500, or VTI, which tracks the total stock market, allows you to own a tiny sliver of the 500 most powerful companies in America. Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Nvidia, Berkshire Hathaway. When they make a profit, you make a profit. When they grow, you grow. You don't have to pick winners because you own all of them. But here is exactly how you shield that money from the government, because the government wants its cut and you want to legally minimize that. You not just invest in a standard taxable brokerage account right away. That should be your last stop after you've exhausted better options. You must use tax-advantaged accounts first. The 401k match. If your employer offers a 401k match, you contribute exactly up to that match. If they match 5%, you put in 5%. That is a 100% instant return on your money. Where else on earth can you get a guaranteed 100% return on your investment overnight? Nowhere. That's free money. Leaving that on the table is like walking past a $100 bill on the sidewalk and not picking it up. The Roth IRA. Next, you open a Roth IRA. In 2026, the contribution limits are high enough that you can stuff thousands of dollars in here. The beauty of a Roth IRA is that you pay taxes on the money now, when your tax rate is relatively low, but it grows completely tax-free and you pull it out tax-free in retirement. No capital gains tax, no income tax, nothing. It's the best deal the government offers. The HSA. If you have a high deductible health plan, the HSA is the only triple tax advantaged account in existence. Tax deductible going in, tax-free growth, and tax-free coming out for qualified medical expenses. In your 30s, you could treat this as a supercharged retirement account. Save your receipts now and reimburse yourself decades later, completely tax-free. Then, and only then, after you've maxed those, do you put money in a taxable brokerage account. And here's the secret sauce. Automate all of this. Set it up so that the day your paycheck hits your checking account, a percentage is automatically transferred to your investment accounts and invested in that index fund. You don't think about it. You don't debate whether this month is a good time to invest. You just do it. If you don't see the money, you can't spend it on stupid things. Pay yourself first, every single time. Before I give you the final, most important step to lock this all in, I have to warn you about the single biggest threat to this entire plan. If you get this wrong, everything we just talked about will completely fall apart. It's the myth that buying a house in your 30s is the ultimate sign of financial success. Right now, society tells you that renting is throwing money away. Your parents probably told you that. Your boss probably tells you that. It's repeated so often that people accept it as fact without ever doing the math. But that is a dangerous, mathematically flawed myth. People believe it because for the last 40 years, housing prices only went up and interest rates were at rock bottom. But those days are not guaranteed to continue. Let's look at the data in 2026. With current interest rates, property taxes, maintenance costs, and home insurance shooting up, buying a starter home that stretches your budget to the absolute breaking point is financial suicide. Here's what the real estate agents don't tell you. When you rent, your rent payment is the maximum you will pay for housing that month. That's it. If the water heater breaks, you call the landlord. If the roof leaks, you call the landlord. If property taxes go up, you don't pay it. When you own, your mortgage payment is the minimum you will pay. When the roof caves in, that's on you. When the HVAC dies in July, that's $8,000 out of your pocket. When the property tax assessment comes in higher than expected, that's your problem. These are unrecoverable costs that destroy wealth. If you are trying to catch up and hit that first $100,000, tying up all your liquidity at a down payment and subjecting yourself to the massive unrecoverable costs of homeownership can trap you for years. You become house poor. All your money goes to the house and you have nothing left to invest. Renting a cheap apartment and aggressively investing the difference into the stock market is often mathematically superior, highly liquid, and much less stressful. You can access that money if you need it. You can't access equity in your house without selling or taking on more debt. Buy a house when you are financially bulletproof, not because you feel peer pressured by your married friends who are also broke but look good on Instagram. Buy a house when it makes mathematical sense, not emotional sense. So here is what we covered, your ultimate catch-up protocol. First, perform financial triage. Kill the ego purchases, sell the depreciating liabilities, and create a gap between what you earn and what you spend. Second, expand your shovel. Job hop for a 20% raise and build a scalable side income in your off hours. Attack both income streams with urgency. Third, automate your wealth machine. Use the employer match, max the Roth IRA, and buy broad market index funds on autopilot. And finally, ignore the societal pressure to buy a house before you're mathematically right. Rent cheap, invest the difference, and buy when it actually makes sense. Getting to $100,000 when you're starting late is hard. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. It requires you to be fundamentally different from the people around you. You have to be okay with being the broke friend for a year or two, driving the older car, bringing your lunch to work, and saying no to expensive nights out. It's uncomfortable, it's lonely sometimes, that I promise you the peace of mind that comes from knowing that you are financially secure is infinitely better than looking rich to people you don't even like. Waking up without that pit in your stomach, knowing that you have options, knowing that you can survive a job loss or an emergency, that feeling is priceless. If this video helped you snap out of the panic and gave you a real plan, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. It tells the algorithm to push this financial truth to more people who need to hear it. There are so many people in their 30s feeling exactly like you're feeling, and they need to know there's a way out. Comment below with the word catch up if you're committing to hitting your first $100,000 in the next 3 years. I read these comments and I want to see your commitment. Stay disciplined, ignore the noise, keep your eyes on your own paper, and I'll see you in the next one.